Good morning, everyone. My name is Ankit, and you're watching the StudyIQ IAS English channel. Here we take up Indian Express analysis, in which we provide you detailed analysis of important articles of the day, and we also provide you with the MCQs and mains answer writing so as to inculcate the habit of practicing your learning in a day-to-day manner. And this will help you immensely, mark my words, immensely in your mains as well as prelims examination. So that is why we are going to hold this important session for today, that is 29th of January. And as you can see from the, why isn't working yet? Give me a minute, I'll get it start again. Now, as I was saying, there are 6 important articles for the day, and we have picked up as usual from the Indian Express. This article states, or these are the 6 articles that I was telling you. We'll start first with the China's new fusion research center, as it has been constructed in China, and it deals with the problem of nuclear fusion. Now, nuclear fission is one of the way how we can harness atoms in generating huge amount of heat, and understanding the process in which we can generate huge amount of energy through the process of atoms, or coalescing them or bombarding them with atoms. These are called as nuclear fusion and nuclear fission respectively. So at today's discussion, it actually involves nuclear fusion and how it is different from nuclear fission. And this is important from GS paper 3 perspective, because important development related to any science and tech is mentioned there. Also, we'll be following up with the PM Awas Yojana, Gramin. Particularly, this scheme is in news because many states, many of them are BJP ruled states, they have highlighted or indicated to the union government that they should increase the limit on which the loans are extended to beneficiaries. So we'll try to understand what are the various features of this scheme and how this scheme is important from exams perspective, because we have seen in the many times that schemes have been asked in exams before. Also, the annual State of Education report, ASER report for the year 2024 was published yesterday, and this is a very important report which highlights the achievements in the school education of our country, primarily belonging to the early child education, foundational learning, as well as the higher school education. And this provides us with the idea of what kind of education setup is there in the rural schools, and it helps us understand whether our policies for the education sector are good or not. So this is an annual report which is published by an NGO called Pratham. So we'll be dealing this report, which is important from GS paper 2 syllabus, as the education and the related social sector developments are covered in this very part of the syllabus. Now we'll also deal with the Greenland lakes, as they are turning brown. So we'll understand the reasons why, instead of being originally blue, why are they turning brown, and what are its implications on the global climate. Now, such kind of a development is again important from GS paper 3 because it deals with matters related to greenhouse gases emission, hence it is a part of environment syllabus. Then we'll be understanding SEBI's when listed platform, as SEBI is trying to inculcate a trading of shares even before they have been listed in the market, which currently takes place in the black or grey market, as it is an unregulated market. So instead, the SEBI is saying that when you transact already in a grey market or an unregulated market, so why can't you transact with us called in a when listed platform. So we'll understand what is this when listed platform. As you can see, in recent years, especially in the prelims, questions from financial sector of our country is being asked in a much higher manner. So these kind of topics are very important from this year's prelims also. That is why we are going to deal with it. Also, we'll be ending our article with understanding the global implications of AI race, as there's a beautiful article written in today's newspaper by an expert called C. Raja Mohan. Now, C. Raja Mohan is a prominent expert in the field of international relations, and most of his articles, which are appearing on a weekly basis in the Indian Express newspaper, they are very informative and good for our exams perspective. So we'll be understanding what will be the global implications of AI race, which is currently going on between US and China, and where is India standing in this global AI race. Understood? Now I've put up a video on this AI global race yesterday itself. So after the end of this session, go to the StudyIQ IAS English channel, the same channel in which you're watching this video. Go to the video section here. I've put up a video here which says global race for AI supremacy, is India falling behind? Now, sorry for this ad. This happens with us every time. So someone was asking it how to remove ads. I don't know how. Or you can pay for it, the premium scheme for YouTube. Now, as I was saying, this is the video, global race for AI supremacy. Here I put you in detail what is the race between AI that is going on between US and China it entails, and what are its implications for India. This is just about 8 to 9 minutes video, and it is very informative. So after this session ends, make sure to watch this video, as it will give you a complete picture of the global race of AI. And in today's discussion, I will be dealing with what are the implications on the global order with this AI race. Understood? So we'll be dealing a sub part of the discussion in our today's discussion, whereas the larger part or the explained part is here. Understood? So please make sure to watch this video. Now let us get back to our usual session. As I was telling you, these are the articles and we'll be covering today. Now the notes for this session will be available on the Telegram channel ATS Live as usual. So please make sure to subscribe to this channel and get the notes, which I immediately upload after the end of the session. Now, before starting with our today's discussion, let us start with the practice question. If my energy levels are low today, please excuse me, I'm not feeling that great. Now, with reference to open market operations conducted by the Reserve Bank of India, consider the following statements. Now, we understood open market operations which is conducted by Reserve Bank of India. It includes that Reserve Bank of India buys or sells government securities in the open market or special to the banks. Now, the purpose of RBI purchasing these this government securities is that it instead sends or gives money to the banks as against the government securities. Now, this increases the supply of money. Whereas, if RBI decides to sell government securities to the bank, it will absorb excess liquidity with the bank, which reduces the money supply. Understood? So, this is what open market operation is all about. Now, good morning Siddharam, good morning Sejal, good morning Amar, good morning Kalpana, good morning Augustine, good morning Abhishek, good morning Baga Springs, Krishna, Doraemon, everyone, good morning. Now, as I was saying, open market operations, they refer to purchase and sale of government securities in the open market by RBI to regulate liquidity in the economy. Yes, this is a correct statement, a very straightforward one, as it is used in order to purchase and sale of government securities to regulate liquidity or to alter the money supply in the economy. Second statement, during the periods of high inflation, the RBI conducts open market operation by purchasing government securities to inject liquidity in the economy. Now, what is the situation whereas there is a high inflation? Now, high inflation occurs when, suppose there is a high inflation, it occurs when there is an increase in money supply. Understood? So, to control the inflation, the RBI would want to reduce this money supply, correct? So, what it will do? It will not inject, but it will rather absorb the liquidity. And how does RBI absorb liquidity through open market operation? By selling of government securities and not purchasing of government securities. So here, selling of government securities would have been correct and not purchase, because you want to absorb liquidity whenever there is a high inflation condition in the economy. So therefore, second statement incorrect, first was correct. We have to identify correct statement, therefore option A is the right answer. Now, this is the practice question for the day that I will be dealing. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the global order by influencing economic power, geopolitics and national security. And we have to discuss the impact of AI on global governance, strategic competition and international relations. Understood? So, we'll be dealing with this article or with this question after the end of our today's discussion, before the stoppage of this session. Understood? So please stay tuned if you want to know how to approach this kind of an answer. This is a very tricky answer, but these kind of questions are very much asked in the exam. So please make sure to watch this video. Now let us start our today's discussion with this first article, which appeared in the world page of the Indian Express newspaper. Now in Delhi edition, the first page itself was an ad by West Bengal government. So the immediately back portion of the first page or the front page of the newspaper is where the world section is located in Delhi edition. Now this article is important from science and tech perspective because it deals with the matter of nuclear fusion. Now why does it deals with the matter of nuclear fusion? Because there is a new fusion center or fusion research center which has been set up in a city of China. So let us try to understand the context of today's discussion. China, it appears to be building a large laser ignited fusion research center in the southwestern city of Myang, which is a development that could aid nuclear weapons design and work exploring of power generation. So the importance of nuclear energy in today's world is primarily twofold. First is to generate power, which is very cheap in nature, and the other reason is to develop nuclear weapons, because these nuclear weapons are the most destructive of all nuclear weapons created by mankind or humankind for that matter. Now there are two ways in which you can use the atoms to make bombs or to generate power. These are called nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Today's article we are dealing with nuclear fusion. Now the satellite photos, it shows 4 outlying arms that will house laser bays and a central experiment bay which will hold a target chamber. And this target chamber, which contains hydrogen isotope, it will be bombarded by powerful lasers so that these hydrogen isotopes, they fuse together and it leads to nuclear fusion. So this is the very basic context of the article. Now this is the center I was talking about. This is the targeted chambers which will house lasers, and this central chamber is where the target or the nuclear isotope of hydrogen will be located, and the lasers will be bombarded from all the 4 areas to undertake nuclear fusion here. Understood? Now, first of all, let us try to understand on a very basic level what is a nuclear fusion. Now, nuclear fusion is a reaction in which 2 atoms of hydrogen, they are combined to form a helium atom. Now during this process, hydrogen is converted into energy, and this energy has the potential whether you can generate power from it or you can generate or make a bomb which emits this kind of energy. So there is both constructive and destructive potential of nuclear fusion. Understood? Now laser fusion is also known as inertial confinement fusion. It is a method in which the nuclear fusion reaction happens. Now these nuclear fusion reaction, it requires large amount of temperature, and in laser fusion we are providing or increasing the temperature to enable fusion with the help of lasers. Understood? So this involves heating, compressing the fuel targets which are in form of pellets, and these are pellets made up of 2 different isotopes of hydrogen called as deuterium and tritium. Now it is one of the most promising approaches to achieve a controlled thermonuclear fusion. As I told you, let us understand now how does this laser fusion happens. Now high powered lasers, they are very key to this technique, and it helps us achieve the enormous amount of energy that we need to make fusion happen. Now this lasers, they are very high intensive and high energy in nature, and what it does is that it compresses and intensifies the nuclear or the hydrogen isotopes, and the high energy and the high pressure on these isotopes results into the fusion process. For example, these are the 4 steps. You provide heat to the nuclear or the hydrogen isotope located here with the help of laser beams, and this laser beams, whenever they are bombarding this hydrogen isotopes, it compresses and leads to increase in pressure of the nuclear isotope. Now whenever there is a high density or high pressure of the nuclear isotope, it leads to the process of ignition, and therefore it leads to the process where the isotope itself burns into a form of explosion. Now if humans are able to control this explosion, they can generate power out of it, or if they don't want to control this explosion, it can lead to nuclear explosion which can be harnessed in a form of weapons. So as I told you, this has both the destructive as well as a constructive potential. It is up to a nation what it wants to do with such a fusion process, and nowadays most of the nations, they want to make power out of it, which is very cheap in nature. Understood? Now let us understand Now let us understand what are the benefits of nuclear fusion. Now unlike nuclear fission plants, which you can understand, there are many nuclear fission isotopes like uranium 235 or plutonium 239. These are very radioactive elements, and by a process of nuclear fission, they destruct or they go out into smaller atoms, resulting into emission of large amount of heat, and when you harness that heat, that process is called as nuclear fusion. Now as against nuclear fission, it involves combining of deuterium or tritium, which are isotopes of hydrogen, and when you combine these, it can lead to coalescence of these individual atoms into an helium atom. So this is what helium, and this combining of 2 smaller isotopes into one larger element, it is called as fusion. For example, you fuse two smaller atoms into one bigger atom, that is fusion, and when a one bigger atom is divided into smaller atoms, that is called as fission. Now, unlike fission plants, these nuclear fusion plants do not produce a large amount of nuclear waste. So that is why, unlike nuclear fission, where you require disposal of nuclear waste, which is can be quite dangerous, this does not require high amount of nuclear waste and hence does not require high amount of waste disposal. Also, there is no active intervention which is needed in kind of nuclear fusion plants whenever there is a time of shutdown, whereas on the nuclear fission plants you need to be very active in order to prevent them from exploding or getting high heat. And also it provides an essentially carbon free energy source, which you can understand is very important whenever we are dealing with a greenhouse gas intensive energy processes like thermal power. So we need to move away from thermal power, and for that nuclear fusion is a great alternative. Understood? So these are the benefits of nuclear fusion, that first of all it does not lead to high amount of generation of nuclear waste. It does not require active intervention at the time when the plant is shut down, and also it is a very clean form of energy source which can be utilized in order to make a carbon neutral energy sources. Understood? Now, let us try to understand why is China actually building these kind of fusion research facilities. Now, igniting fusion fuel, it allows researchers to study how such reactions work, and that might one day create a clean power source, which is a very plentiful resource for hydrogen. Also, it enables China to examine the nuances of how it can detonate such kind of a weapons if it were to make in future. So this kind of helps first of all in understanding the need for power generation and also for its destructive potential, that is in order to make nuclear fission bombs. Now you have to understand both China and US, they are a part of comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, which means China and US, they can't test nuclear weapons into the outer atmosphere or in all environments. So what the countries like US and China and also India do is that they undertake some kind of an experiments which does not lead to complete destruction of the atom or complete explosion of a nuclear weapon. So these kind of lab tests or research centers, these are subcritical explosive tests which are allowed under the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty. So that kind of test helps any nation crucial to maintain its safety and reliability of its nuclear weapons, which both China and US is doing, and we understand using such kind of simulations even India undertakes the testing of its or understands how can nuclear weapons be made in future. Understood? So this is why such kind of a development is very important for countries like India, China, US, and you have to understand its importance that it utilizes nuclear fusion, which leads to lesser amount of nuclear waste as compared to nuclear fission. Understood? Now let us move to next article of the day. This article appeared in the page 7th of the newspaper, and it states that states they are demanding hike in funds under the PM rural housing scheme. Now I don't know how many of you has seen the web series called Panchayat. Now Panchayat in its third season has a old lady's character who is demanding house from the Panchayat secretary, and the lady, she was demanding house from the Panchayat scheme under PM Awas Yojana Gramin, which is given in today's article. Understood? So I forgot to add that screenshot in the slide. Now the context of today's article, as I was saying, is that the union budget is currently going to be presented on February the 1st. And in that regard, the union ministry, it is holding consultation with the various state governments and what it wants from the budget. Now, many state governments, including some of the state governments which are under the rule by BJP, which is also a ruling party at the center, they have demanded or they demanded a hike in the funds which are provided under PM Awas Yojana Gramin. As currently the assistance under the scheme is provided for rupees 1.2 to 1.3 lakh, and the states, they are demanding to increase it to about 2 to 2.5 lakh. Understood? So in our today's discussion, we'll understand salient features of PM Awas Yojana Gramin. Understood? No problem, Krishna. If you're unable to join class sometimes, as long as you watch the video on a daily basis at the time of your choosing, it is well and good. No need to worry, okay? Now, as I was saying, let us try to understand important features of PM Awas Yojana Gramin. Now, this Awas Yojana, it provides a pakka household with all basic amenities like light, supply of water, etc. to all houseless households and those households who are living in kacha, that is raw or dilapidated houses. Now there are many houses we have seen, they are made solely from the mud, so these are not pakka houses. Pakka in Hindi means permanent, kacha means raw. Okay, so these mud made houses, these are not permanent houses, rather these are temporary houses, and they can be subjected to destruction even in a small landslide or any kind of a natural calamity. Whereas pakka households, which are temporary, which are permanent households, these are real households, like the households which we and you live. Understood? So these kind of houses will be provided to poor people under the PM Awas Yojana. Understood? Now it is targeting to promote accessibility and affordability of housing in all of rural India. However, it exempts certain areas, that are Delhi and Chandigarh. So all of India's rural area except the rural areas located in NCT Delhi and Union Territory of Chandigarh, they are included in the scheme. Understood? Now originally this scheme targeted construction of 2.95 crore houses, which were to be completed by the end of last financial year, that is by 2024. However, the scheme got extended with the government announcing that it will construct 2 crore additional houses. So the total amount of households constructed under this scheme will be 4.95 crore houses. Understood? Now, as of November 19, 2024, 3.21 crore houses, they were sanctioned by the government, whereas 2.67 crores houses have been built under the scheme. So, understand the impact of this scheme is so that 2.67 crore households may have been built, and you can understand it will provide shelter to about 10 crore people in India at minimum level. So, now 10 crore people, they have a roof over their head just because they enrolled into this scheme. Now the scheme also places a special focus that the women needs to be owner of the house, and because of that about 75% of sanctioned houses, they either have women as the sole owner or the joint owner of the house. So it also provides safety and security to women, that whenever they will be the legal owner of the house, it will prevent their husbands or their brothers or their fathers to remove them from the houses. Understood? So this is how women empowerment are ensured through this scheme. Now, what are the benefits of this scheme? Now you have to understand this scheme provides unit assistance to beneficiaries so that they could use the money and construct the houses. For that, rupees 1.2 lakh are provided to the people who are living in plain areas, whereas 1.3 lakh is provided to people living in hilly states or in difficult areas, especially in the areas which are located in far forests or selected tribal and backward districts. So these two kind of unit assistance is provided by the government directly into the bank account of beneficiaries, that is 1.2 lakh for people living in plains, whereas 1.3 lakh rupees provided to people living in mountainous difficult areas. Now this money, it is provided with a contribution of both central and state government. Therefore, it is what kind of scheme? Centrally sponsored scheme. That is, center is sponsoring the money, whereas state is also actively contributing to it. Now the contribution varies actually. In plains area, 60% of the money is contributed by union government, 40% is done by state government, whereas in difficult areas, 90% is given by union government and 10% is given by state government. Now this scheme requires the beneficiaries to construct a house minimum of 25 square kilometers, which also should include a dedicated area for hygienic cooking, which means houses with a kitchen also should be constructed at a minimum level, and this house should be of a minimum area of 25 square kilometers. Now loans up to 70,000 which is provided to the beneficiaries at a 3% reduced interest rate, so that the construction or whatever cost might be incurred during the process of construction can be made sure, which is available to the beneficiaries. Also the fund, as I told you, will be transferred electronically or directly to the bank account of the beneficiary. Now the eligibility of people or people who are eligible under this scheme, like that women in panchayat, they are identified actually through a socio-economic caste census which happened in 2011, and also through Awas Plus survey which is held by the Ministry of Rural Development. And this identification has to be verified by the Gram Sabha, which is the sum total of all voters located in that particular village. Now all houseless households are provided houses under the scheme. So does households who have a kacha houses, that is not a permanent, rather a mud made houses. Also, it also includes some of the criteria of people who are compulsory should be included in this scheme. For example, those are destitutes household or people who were rescued from bonded labor, manual scavengers, primitive tribal groups. These are the peoples who need to provide or who need to be provided houses under the scheme. So these are the beneficiary list, that the beneficiary list is identified by SECC 2011 and it is verified by the Gram Sabha. Understood? Now, this scheme also provides for convergence with many other government schemes, so that instead of just providing the households, the government also provides benefit under various other schemes with which the beneficiary might be eligible. For that, for example, Swachh Bharat Gramin Yojana, under this, the beneficiaries receive up to 12,000 rupees so that they can construct toilet in these households. With Manrega, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Act, the beneficiaries can avail 95 days worth of employment as an unskilled labor, which again will provide them with money. Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana provides the women living in these households with a one free cylinder, which can be used for cooking, and also the LPG connection is provided. So does pipe drinking water supply as well as electricity connections under various schemes such as Jal Shakti Yojana as well as Pradhan Mantri Saubhagya Yojana. All of these are provided to the beneficiaries. Understood? Now let us try to solve the practice question that I have curated on this same topic with reference to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. Consider the following statement. This scheme aims to provide pakka houses with basic amenities to all rural households living in kacha and dilapidated households by 2024. Yes, this is a correct scheme. It was correct also, but now this has been extended up till 2027. So first statement actually is not incorrect, it is rather correct, but you have to ensure that the scheme has been extended again. So first statement right here, the financial assistance for the house construction under PM Awas Yojana Gramin is fully funded by the central government across all states and union territories. Is the second statement correct? No, it is incorrect. I told you this is a centrally sponsored scheme, that is the funding is provided by both union as well as state government. That in plains, this is of a ratio of 60:40, whereas in difficult areas or hilly areas, the ratio is 90:10. Understood? So if the statement says central government contributes entirely to the scheme, the answer would be incorrect or the statement would be incorrect. Only first is correct. We have to identify correct. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Yes, right, Sri Kalpana. Sejal Gupta, Manrega provides 100 days of work to usual people, but 95 days of work is provided under this scheme. Understood? So you are right, Sejal. Manrega provides 100 days of work to anyone. But for the beneficiaries who are getting benefits under PM Awas Yojana, here 95 days of work is provided. I saw the government site also, it said 95, so I am 100% sure about the fact. Now, let us move to another article. This article actually appeared in many pages of the newspaper. If you look at today's newspaper, op-ed section, explained section, front page, it is all filled with the articles related one or the other with annual survey education report. So, I have combined in our today's discussion every important article, so nothing is left out. Understood? So, you need not stress about covering annual survey education report if you are watching this video. Now, this article appeared in many pages as I told you, and it is important from GS paper 2 perspective because social sector, particularly focus with respect to education, is given in the GS paper 2 syllabus. Now, I have attached the screenshot of page 1 article. There are many articles which you can refer to in the newspaper. Now, the context of today's article is that the annual survey, annual status of education report 2024 was published, and it showed a first sign of recovery from the slump that happened during COVID-19 pandemic. Because we saw during COVID-19 pandemic, the usual process of education when children, they go to school on a daily basis, it got disrupted. And as a result, the schools, they were only able to educate child with the help of online education, which you and I, we both understand is not the ideal way of teaching, especially to a smaller children. Now, this kind of a disruption in their education, it witnessed in the ASER surveys which happened after COVID-19 pandemic, and especially the survey which happened in 2022, it showed that the actual levels of education of children has actually reduced from before COVID pandemic. However, the 2024 report which was published yesterday shows that actually there are signs of recovery, that the status of education of children which had slumped before, it is getting better now. So it is a good news. Now it shows that reading and arithmetic level of children between ages 6 to 14, which is a part of Right to Education Act, it has improved across states with government schools leading the way. Now, this is a very pleasant development that you understand primarily the private education institutions, primarily the private schools are performing better. But this article highlights that the government schools have actually outperformed private schools when it comes to improvement in the educational levels like reading and arithmetic levels. So, it is a good news even for the government schools. Now, according to annual status education report, basic reading levels for class 3 children enrolled in government schools, it is actually the highest since the survey began 20 years ago. So understood the importance of this survey. It is telling you important details, and it is highlighting that government, when it is spending so much money on the education sector, it is actually reaping dividends for the government. Now, let us try to first of all understand very basic details of what is this survey actually is all about. It is published by an NGO called Pratham. It is a nationwide survey which happens in the rural households, and this is a household based survey. That is, the children and their parents, they are interviewed by visiting their houses. Rather not, this is not a form of test which is presented to the students in their schools. Understood? This is a question and based ask survey where the surveyor asks questions from the child and the their parents, okay, and they do so by visiting the household of the children. Now, this latest survey, it comes after a smaller survey which happened in 2023, and the latest survey, it assesses close to 6.5 lakh children in 605 rural districts, and the survey assesses basic reading levels and arithmetic levels of the child. Now, this survey considers children in 3 categories. First is pre-primary, second is elementary, that is 6 to 14, and the older children, that is 15 to 16. So, 3 categories of children are covered: the ones who are not in school, the ones who are in elementary classes, and also the ones who are in older classes like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Understood? Now, let us try to understand various important highlights that the 2024 report highlights. It states that almost all states, barring Jammu, Kashmir and Nagaland, they have shown actually recovery in learning levels from the time of COVID-19 pandemic. As I told you, during COVID pandemic, the learning levels of children had suffered because of disruption in their education, and that also resulted into a decline in learning levels, which was highlighted in the ASER report of 2022. Now, 2024 report highlights that most of the states have shown recovery except Jammu, Kashmir and Nagaland. Now, these are disturbed states, so we understand why this is happening. Now, states such as Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Maharashtra, Odisha and Uttar Pradesh, they have actually shown a higher improvement, that is more than 10% increase. So, these states which are currently lagging behind other states when it comes to education level, especially Odisha and Uttar Pradesh, they have actually performed well. So, it is also good news. Now, this curve that I have attached here, or the graph, it shows actually the learning level. When you can understand children of standard 3 who can actually read the text meant for standard 2, you understand this was about 27% in 2018. It fell down to 20.5% in 2022. However, if you can see, it actually here it reduced. However, it increased again in the year 2024. So, this highlights the recovery here, that from falling it has actually improved again. Similarly, we can show that the children in standard 3 who can at least do subtraction, here also it saw some decline in the year 2022 after COVID-19 pandemic, but after 2022, from 2024 we saw a rapid recovery here. So, in terms of reading and arithmetic levels, the status of children studying in both government and private colleges or schools have improved, and more prominently so in the government schools here. Understood? Now, other achievements which has been highlighted, that the learning levels of children across all ages has improved, but the most notable improvement has been in the children who are in primary section, especially the children between 6 to 14 years of age. Now, this has been because the government is focusing more on initiatives, especially both state and union government through its new educational policy or the NEP. It brought a focus on foundational learning and literacy, which was done through Nipun Bharat Mission. And actually this focus on foundational learning by the both state and union governments has actually led to improvement in the primary section of the schools, that these children has actually gotten better when it comes to reading and arithmetic skills. So well done both state and central governments. Also the report, it shows that government schools enrollment, which saw a rise during pandemic, because we saw during the time of pandemic education became unaffordable for many people who lost their jobs. So whenever it came to supporting their children in the private schools, it became difficult. So as a result, the students enrollment from private sector decreased and it increased in government schools. However, this trend has actually reversed now that the enrollment in government schools is at the levels of pre-pandemic level, not the pandemic level. So this shows how the socio-economic changes in the society mirrors in the schools admissions also. I hope my voice is clear to you guys. About annual survey education report, it shows that the NEP, that is new education policy brought by government in 2023, it focused on taking early childhood care and education to all children before class 1. And it shows that percentage of children who are between age 3 and 5 and they are enrolled in some form of preschool, it actually increased. So this highlights the institutions like Anganwadi, which are used to provide education or early education to children before school starts. These are very beneficial. So this is how we can improve Anganwadi in order to increase the levels of education even before these children enters into school. Now for the first time, ASER, it also included a section in digital literacy. That is, if a child between 14 to 16 years of age, are they able to operate mobile phones in using calculator or in setting up an alarm or browsing something on the internet. That survey also assesses the ability of a child to use the mobile phone or to have a digital literacy, and it showed that in general more boys than girls are able to use a smartphone. However, this trend reversed in South India. In southern Indian parts, the girls, they were more digitally literate than when it comes to boys. Understood? Now let us understand the significance of this finding, that it told us now that the children belonging to the lower sections of the classes, that is from 6 to 14 years of age, their reading and arithmetic ability has improved the highest. So this highlights that country's new education policy, which was brought in 2020 by the government, it actually focused on improving foundational learning skills, and it has actually trickled down to the on ground development, because in this part of a new education policy, both state government and central government, they focused exclusively on adopting the teacher centric approach. Here the training was provided to the teachers so that these teachers can become more receptive of the development of a child, and they can also seek empathy with the child's development. So when they associate any child in their classroom as their own child, their focus on the children's progress becomes much more prominent, and this results into higher learning levels of the child. So this is how the government, by focusing on teacher training, by providing them with the adequate skills and knowledge to be receptive of the child's need and provide them education accordingly, has paid rich dividends to the government. Understood? Now let us solve another practice question with reference to annual status of education report. Consider the following statement. It is conducted annually by the Ministry of Education, Government of India, to assess learning outcomes among school children. Now it is conducted annually, but it is conducted by an NGO called as Pratham and not a government survey. So first statement incorrect. Now this report primarily focuses on rural areas and evaluates basic reading and arithmetic skills of children. Yes, correct. It is a rural area only scheme, and it focuses on reading and arithmetic ability of children. Third, ASER findings have highlighted reduction in learning gaps among students, especially in the foundational literacy and numerical skills. Yes, it is correct. I told you this learning gap actually increased during the time of pandemic. However, it has now reduced, and it highlights actually improvement in learning levels of the child. So third statement is correct. Second is correct. First was not. We have to identify correct statement. Option B here is the right answer. Now moving to the next article. This article actually appeared in the explained section of the Indian Express newspaper. Sorry, I've missed out this. You have an option to watch this video also on the link that I've provided you here. The benefits of watching this video not on YouTube but on our website is that you will be getting notes there and there itself. Also, you have an option to download this video in case the net connection is patchy and not very fast. And also you can practice your learning with the help of interactive MCQs that are also available in the portal. Understood? So please make sure to register for this course. It is just available at 1 rupee. So there is no harm for that. Okay. Now, as I was saying, let us move to this new article. It appeared in the explained section of newspaper, which in today is in 17th page in the Delhi edition. Now, this article actually highlights that because of some environmental reasons or geographical reasons, the Greenland or the lakes on Greenland, which was already crystal blue in nature, they have turned actually into brown. So, what are the reasons? We'll try to find out in today's discussion. Now, more than 7,500 lakes, which are located in western part of Greenland, they have actually turned blue. Now they've actually turned brown, and because they are started to emit carbon and have suffered from drop in water quality, and this was because of extreme weather events that took place in the year 2022. Now these lakes, which were once crystal blue, as I told you, it provide drinking water to locals. It is also feature rich in biodiversity, and it was able to sequester or absorb atmospheric carbon. So it made them important ecologically as well as environmentally. The analysis of this turning of the color of Greenland lake, it also revealed that the lakes underwent transformation at breakneck speeds, because such kind of a change actually happens over a large period of time, more than hundreds and hundreds of years. But this change has actually happened in just 2 years. So this highlights the rapid change which can happen to ecology, and that can create certain kind of dangers for existence of mankind. So let us try to understand what happened actually in Greenland. Now, Greenland, it usually experiences snowfall during the fall season. Now, fall season in Greenland is between late August to late September. So that 1 month period, Greenland witnesses snowfall. Now, in 2022, instead of this snowfall, because of prevailing warmer temperatures, what happened was there was increased amount of rain and not snowfall. And this rain, which was almost increased in temperature as compared to snow, it caused the permafrost, which is a layer of ice over the ground of Greenland. It caused this permafrost to melt, and because of this melting of the existing layer of ice, it released significant amount of carbon, magnesium and iron and other elements into the outer atmosphere. As I told you before, the polar regions permanently which has permafrost, it is able to sequester or hold a huge amount of carbon within it. As the dead plants, which in other climates are subjected to decomposition, which releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, that process does not happen whenever there is a layer of ice over the dead plants. And this is how these permafrost are able to store large amount of carbon dioxide. But when you melt, or there are some conditions which will melt this permafrost, it will lead to release of the stored carbon dioxide in the permafrost, and this is what happened. Now, this record level of rain which poured over Greenland instead of snowfall, it can be attributed to a phenomena called as atmospheric rivers, and this release of carbon dioxide, iron and magnesium, whenever they were washed into lakes, it resulted into the transformation of lakes from crystal blue color to brown color. Understood? Now, as I was saying, this increase in temperature and rainfall during the month of fall in Greenland, it can be attributed to the atmosphere phenomena of atmospheric rivers, which are relatively long, narrow regions in the atmosphere like rivers in the sky. And this is where it transports huge amount of water vapor outside the location of tropical areas. Now, these rivers in sky, it brings much needed precipitation and it contributes to annual freshwater supply. However, strong atmospheric rivers, it can also lead to disastrous flooding and bringing in heat, especially in the colder regions like Greenland. So whenever there are colder regions like Greenland, it witnesses atmospheric river. Actually, from snowfall, what we see that increases instances of rainfall, and this increases the temperature of overall area, leading to melting of permafrost. Understood? Now, actually, we need to understand why it happened. Studies have shown that with rising global temperatures, atmospheric rivers, these are expected to become more and more intense. Hence, in coming time, we can expect these atmospheric rivers, they can be more intensified, thereby leading to more and more rainfall in the region. Now, existing climate models, they show that by the end of 21st century, atmospheric rivers will become 50 to 290% more frequent. Hence, you can understand these colder regions, they will witness increased rainfall and not snowfall, and because of this rainfall we can expect the melting of permafrost will increase further. Understood? Now let us try to understand what was the impact of this rainfall in the Greenland region. Now, as organic carbon and other elements, they were washed into these lakes, it turned the physical, chemical and biological properties of the water bodies, and as the water quality of these lakes, they were adversely affected, and therefore the odor, color and taste of waters located in these lakes, it changed dramatically. Now, the increased presence of dissolved organic material when they interact with drinking water treatment process, it can also lead to formation of triethylmethanes, which are also carcinogenic in nature. So instead, not just the water quality is receding, but the water has the potential of becoming more and more cancer inducing. Understood? So this was the today's discussion in the article. Now, beside the color change, it also meant that less sunlight was able to penetrate the lakes, which also impacted the formation of phytoplankton in the region. Now, these phytoplanktons, whenever they are present in water, it is able to consume large amount of carbon dioxide, just similar to the ways how forest or trees in our atmosphere, they absorb carbon dioxide. So the presence of phytoplanktons in large number is very important for the health of the lake, but these phytoplanktons, they also require presence of sunlight. But whenever the water instead changes its color from blue to brown, the amount of sunlight reaching these phytoplanktons, they also reduce, thereby endangering the absorption or the presence of phytoplanktons. So whenever the less amount of phytoplanktons are present in the atmosphere, it will lead to absorption of carbon dioxide in large numbers. Also, this transformed the lakes from carbon sinks earlier, because presence of phytoplankton, it led to absorption of huge amount of carbon, but whenever these phytoplanktons, they die in the brown water, it will lead to lakes from becoming carbon sinks to significant sources of emissions of carbon dioxide. Understood? So this is what the change that has happened due to change of color in the Greenland lakes. Now you have to understand why such a development is significant. Now the planet, it is already emitting unprecedented amount of heat trapping greenhouse gases. So primarily the world relies on these permafrost regions and forests to absorb high amount of emitted carbon dioxide. But when these permafrost itself or they are melting, it reduces the ability of Earth to absorb the requirement or absorb the required amount of greenhouse gases. So that is why the change in carbon levels has actually not resulted into reduction in carbon emission, rather it has led to overall increase in carbon emission, because we are emitting more and we are absorbing less. Now let us move to another article of the day. This article appeared in the business page of the Indian Express newspaper. It states that SEBI has actually proposed a new platform which is called as when listed platform, which will allow investors to invest and sell their shares even before they are enlisted into the market. So let us understand the context of today's discussion. In this article, it states that the SEBI is proposing a when listed platform which will allow trading in company share between the period they are allotted to the respective investors and from the time they are listed in the very market. So the time between which they are allotted and listed, that time currently is not able, the investors are not able to transact it officially, rather they rely on black and grey markets to transact in these shares. So the SEBI is of the opinion that when you are transacting it already in black market, so why don't you transact it formally with a platform which we create called as when listed platform. Now, what is the current timeline of listing of shares? We have to understand, for example, if the IPO, it closes on the day T, for example, it can be Monday. So the allotment of share, it is completed by T plus 1 day, that is, it might be completed on Tuesday. Now, from the time the IPO is closed on Monday and it is allotted on Tuesday, the listing of this share, it only happens up till T plus 3 days. Which means Monday is the day of T, that is the share or IPO closes, it will be listed into the market, that is Monday's T, plus 1 is Tuesday, plus 2 is Wednesday, and plus 3 is Thursday. So the share will be listed in the market on Thursday. So between Monday and Tuesday, if someone wanted to sell its share, it had to rely on black markets. And instead, the SEBI is saying that we will construct a portal in which you can transact over these unlisted shares in the market on the platform also. So it is the period between the allotment of share and listing day, and investors usually trade in the grey market, which are unregulated market, and this market actually works on demand and supply. So the people who are not able to transact in these shares currently, between Monday and Thursday, they will be able to transact it now, just because they don't have to rely it on pre-listing grey market. Now, probability, why does grey market actually happens? Because first of all, whenever people want to apply for IPO, there are lesser amount of shares which are available in IPO, and there are more amount of investors who are trying to buy the share. So people, or every people who apply for IPO, they do not get the shares. So rather they depend on these kind of grey markets to buy it at a significant premium. So for example, if a share is in high demand during its IPO and the face value of that share is 100 rupees, so you can expect anywhere between 150, 200, even 250 rupees, people are willing to pay just for that share because it is very popular. So this kind of a money enables any investor who is holding an IPO share, if they want to sell it and make money. So these kind of transactions can actually happen over the Ven portal. Okay. So this retail investors, they look at the premium offering in the grey market, and this also indicates to any investor if that share is in high demand. So they are more likely to invest in these shares, and this allows the already holders of the share to make profits. So these profits earlier is going to unregulated markets, and SEBI wants to make it a more regulated market. Understood? Now, as soon as the allotment of share is over, the enlightenment will be get crystallized, and this entitlement of the shareholder will allow that shareholder to sell the share to any person. Also, you have to understand, it formalizes market operations, doing away with the possible dubious transaction that may happen in the grey market. So it is in the very nature of SEBI to protect the investors from any misdoing in the share market, and it is therefore constructing this Ven trading platform to enable trading of shares from the time they are allotted to people and from the time till they are listed into the market, that is from T plus 3 days. Okay. Now let us move to the last article of the day. As I told you, this one is actually an article written by the C. Raja Mohan, who is a prominent international expert, and he is saying that the DeepSeek development by the China's AI, it has a potential to become a new tool for the great power rivalry, that is rivalry between US and China. Now, as I told you, I have posted a video in the video section, so please watch that video for a more complete understanding of the AI. And in this article, we'll be trying to understand how such developments have the potential to change the global order. Understood? So therefore, we'll be dealing this article from international relations perspective, and this article appeared in the front page of today's newspaper in the Delhi edition. Now, the context of this article is that as the world is shaken up by this great power rivalry between India and between US and China, and therefore Indian establishment should also assess how such an AI race between US and China will have implications on the Indian interest. So this is the context of this article. Now let us try to understand what are the implications such an event hold for India and global order. First is that there is a very strategic salience of this moment, as many experts like C. Raja Mohan, they are seeing this development of DeepSeek much similar to the launch of Sputnik, that is the first satellite which was launched into the space by Russia. Now this launch of Sputnik into space, it kind of shook the entire Western world, primarily the US, as US was of the opinion that it had the technological primacy in that time. So understanding when the Russia also had the ability to launch a satellite, US went double down on its space efforts, which included first landing on the moon, which was done by US. So this technological development in the space sector was heralded by the very moment when Sputnik was launched by USSR into the space, and this actually woken up US, and it tried to spend much more on space. So this also has a similar kind of a potential, that when China is able to develop such a high level of AI tool or AI LLM, this will force US to spend much more money on AI developments. Also, DeepSeek heralds an escalation of geopolitical rivalry. As we understand, after the end of Cold War, we saw a prominence of a unipolar world. That was a world where US was the only superpower. But in recent times, we have seen from military point of view, from economic point of view, and from technological point of view, China is trying to reduce the difference that it has with US, which means China is trying to gain parity with US. Now, such kind of a development, it poses a risk of escalation of this geopolitical rivalry, that such rivalry which was much downplayed currently, it can increase to a much hostile level by the development of China's new LLM. So this has been folding for nearly a decade, as I told you. Now such, just like Sputnik, when it heralded the geopolitical rivalry between US and USSR, the DeepSeek development can herald such rivalry between US and China. Now the third reason is that the development of DeepSeek is very different from development of LLM tools in the West. Because in the West, we have seen the Western companies and the government, they are spending much more resources and money in development of these tools. However, this DeepSeek, it tells that the development of LLM can be done at much lesser cost, and this gives hopes to middle powers like India and France as they are undertaking their own development in the AI. Now currently they are undertaking development of sovereign AI, and for that they will be needing strategies which they will be doing it independently, and they can also rely on other partners like US. So for that, first of all, the most prohibitive factor currently in the AI development was the cost, which the DeepSeek development tells us that cost is not such a big factor, as you can develop a high level LLM like DeepSeek at a much lesser cost than the West. Now there is this another factor that US has chosen to partner with that. Now, in order to contain the developments of China, US can even seek help of its own partners like US, India, France, etc. So this gives India the opportunity that it does not have to move into the development of AI alone. Rather, it can cooperate with other powers like France and US in order to gain parity with the world's best systems of AI. Understood? Also, the great power cooperation might happen in advanced technologies, as we have seen in the past, where US and USSR, they cooperated on space technology, on nuclear weapons, as it led to many setting of rules in how the countries could conduct in the global framework. And this kind of a development also has a potential that in future US and China might sit together and debate on what or how we should control the prevalence of AI technology. So here India should play a key role. Actually, whenever the rapprochement between two world powers happen, India should make sure that, unlike earlier when it was excluded from the discussions of nuclear weapons and energy, here it wanted to be included in the discussions of AI. So this highlights that India should be a part in shaping the world governance, rather be a mere subject to it. Understood? So this is how such implication is there for the global order, that it can increase the levels of cooperation, or it can also lead to a problem where the rivalry between these two nations intensifies. Understood? So let us try to understand how to write this practice question. Now we'll start with our answer as usual with an introduction. You will say that DeepSeek development of an LLM. What is an LLM? If you want to understand, please refer to the video I was telling you before the start of this session. It is a development by China, which according to China is technologically at par with the OpenAI's own LLM. Understood? So this is the introduction of the answer. Now body of your answer will include 5 points. Now these 5 points actually are the points I have mentioned in this slide here, that you will say this is a moment much similar to that of Sputnik, and it has the potential to escalate geopolitical rivalry. Third, it has shown that it is possible to construct such kind of a system with less funding. It has the potential so that the US can cooperate with its allies, and also it has the potential that in coming future both US and China can sit together and frame rules and regulations on how AI should function in the world. Understood? So these are the 5 points that you will write here. The intensification of rivalry, similar to Sputnik movement, that it will promote race among two nations. How cost can be kept low, which is important for countries like India. How cooperation of US with allies, and how the cooperation between US and China could happen. So these are all the scenarios in which there will be a change in global order and how the global governance, competition as well as international relations might be changing because of these 5 factors. And you will conclude your answer by saying that whenever these kind of events happen, India should learn from its past and it should become an active part of governance of the technologies and not be a subject to it. So it should actually be a rule framer, not a rule follower. Understood? So this is, you will try to write your answer. Now, such kind of an answers require an ability of you to critically think, an ability of you to imply, because all this information you already know. You just need to present it in a coherent words in a decent manner. Understood? So try to write this answer. If you have any problem, you can always come to me in this Telegram channel, as some of you already do. And I've seen their improvement from the past week, that they are writing much better answers this week. So this highlights, when you start writing your answer on a daily basis, it will actually lead to improvement in your answer writing. So please do that, and please contact me if you're feeling any problem related to it. And before the end of this discussion, this is the question for today. Please try to solve this question, comment on the correct answers. I will refer to it before the start of tomorrow's session. So until then, I bid you a very good bye. I'll see you again tomorrow at